All right, welcome back to the Music Podcast. Joining me and Tom this week, we've got the Kilian Duarte, known bass player from joining with Felix Martin, playing for Fallujah, Stay at the Summit. I also know that you're in other projects, Lattermath. I think you work for Angel Vivaldi as well, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah, and Aviolic, which is pretty cool. We had the
Indeed.
Lattermath guys on the show already, actually, and that was
Yeah,
a really cool
I saw
podcast.
Derek and I saw Derek and Eli did that, which is thanks for having them on there. Yeah, we're very excited for that release.
It was a cool
Yeah,
release.
Yeah,
we're
they're
really,
really cool guys, man. Yeah, it was a cool release.
yeah,
Yeah, I
they're
love the
great
album.
dudes. Great.
Um,
Thank you very much.
mm, so what did you do with Lanamath? What, were you helping compose the music? Were you helping with the bass
Um,
line?
so so mostly just the bass lines for this release because this had been material that had been kind of sitting in the works for quite a long time. I had to like obviously full creative control over what I was playing, and that matter I did contribute. But this is definitely one of those albums that like, the vocals are such a beautiful highlight and the songwriting is so awesome that like, I mean, I have like the bass really shines on it, but it was one of those that like I loved how the songs were. I loved the arrangements. So for me, it was just a matter of just making sure my bass lines fit everything proportionally and were really tasteful. But I'm really happy with it. Like I mean, we're not of all my projects, it's not a big project. Like we're not that established. But as far as like being proud of the work that we put in, like I'm very elated that that piece of work finally came out. It took many years to get that record out, and I really couldn't be happier with the end result. The mixing, everyone's guest performances is wonderful, and just like it's just yeah, I'm stoked. Yeah,
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 it
cool,
should
man.
be. Should
And
be.
then last year,
thank you.
yeah, you should do, man. You got quite a wide variety of big artists that you played with, and last year Fallujah came out with that album, so I'm assuming you've been working
Yeah,
hard with those guys last year. That was awesome to get that album.
yeah,
Actually, that's a really, really top album from you guys. Um,
yeah.
like, hey, are you guys doing a tour? Are you touring at Fallujah this year?
So we might be doing something in the fall. I'm not 100% sure what's going on with that. We might be doing some stuff in the summer. That's still up and tentative with the negotiations and everything like that. But yeah, like all this past year, I was in. I saw Tom for the first time in a couple of years. We did a full European tour with Rivers of Nile, and we did 2 U.S. and 1 U.S. Canada tour earlier this year. So it was really nice because like I'd known Scott, mostly Scott. I'd known Scott for many years now. I want to say at least like 7 years or so. And he'd actually been friends with Derek and a bunch of people, so we all kind of like knew each other. And I was a big fan of the band because I liked the music. And last February, a year ago, he asked me, "Hey, Evan can't do these tours because he's a dad. He's still doing the dad thing. Can you like do these tours with us?" And it ended up being pretty great because especially after COVID, I'd been dying to go back on the road, play shows in front of people, and the music I really, really enjoy, and they're really great guys. They become kind of my brothers, and we were able to see a lot of the world together. And we just did the 70,000 tons of metal cruise last month,
Oh,
which was a lot of fun. Yeah, because I've always wanted to do one of those things. I heard about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm down to do that. So. But yeah, as for future touring, if I'm available, I'm always down to play with those guys because they're awesome. But I think, as of right now, tentatively, there's something in the works for the fall, possibly Europe. So, but we got to see. I don't know if something's happening, but as of right now, probably the fall.
yeah. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Did you ever do anything with Scale the Summit live, or was that like just the album?
Yeah. So right now the band's kind of like in a little bit of a break. But no, yeah, we did we did 2 full U.S. tours in 2017. And unfortunately we haven't played live in a minute because of COVID. But we did play Mexico City, a huge festival with Leprous in 2019, which was awesome. We released the record during COVID. It did, we got a great reception for it. But STS right now is just kind of like, Chris is kind of doing his own thing and chilling out. And so, like, with STS, it's kind of one of these things where, like, whenever he needs me, he knows where I am. And, I love playing with the band and I love releasing music with him. But, I've just been busy, and he's been doing his own thing for a little bit now, and so hopefully, like maybe next year we'll do some more stuff. Like we got to see where the world goes, but but we did do 2 full tours and then travel abroad a bit before that, so it's cool.
That's cool, man. Hey, out of like, because you got such a wide selection of people you play for, what's the hardest set list for you personally? Like, same with Felix Martin's got to be pretty tricky. Same with
Felix
Fallujah as well.
So, like, the set that I worked on the most, pound for pound, was the set for the first U.S. tour I did with Fallujah. Because I was familiar with their later stuff, like from Dreamless onward, right?
Yeah.
But I didn't realize that, like, The Flesh Prevails, that album, has got some of the craziest tech death ever.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so we had to play, like, Sapphire and Carved from Stone and stuff like that. Stuff that's really, really hardcore, technically, like, takes a lot. And we were doing a full, like, we were learning a headliner set and a direct support set. So the amount of work I had to do for that one was pretty nuts. That one was, like, for touring-wise, that was definitely, like, the set that, like, I remember, like, being, like, it took the most amount of work for me to get it to, like, that. Because it's not so much, like, the information is not so much the problem. It's getting your hands to go at that speed cleanly.
Yeah.
And, like, it's different recording. And also, because of who I'm replacing for the live set, with Evan, I want to be able to nail this stuff cold. And Rob was a great bass player as well. So I want to go in there really confident. So that one took me a hot minute for that. And then, not necessarily difficult mentally, but when I did that tour with Angel, it's a lot of speed picking, like a lot of speed metal alternate picking stuff. So, and he does stuff like, he's not like a lot of other bands where like his like bass stems, because Jacob, his bass player who does the album, he's a really, really damn good player. But he doesn't do like the whole, like I do like half while Angel does like the crazy picking. He matches that note for note. So a lot of that like really crazy speed metal picking, like really crazy stuff. Just because like I'm primarily a fingerstyle player, but I play guitar and I play pick style as well. So that one was just more like, it wasn't so much like it's difficult to play, it was just a lot of endurance, because it's like you're going hard, you're picking really aggressive patterns for a very consistent amount of time with a lot of dynamic changes, and it got my picking stuff into shape. But yeah, Fallujah definitely 100% was the like most like, okay, this is some real shit right here.
You didn't find that with Abiotic? Like the
Abiotic was, so there were parts of Abiotic that were difficult. The thing about Abiotic is that the bass kind of does its own thing a little bit, so like it's like a kind of in between. Abiotic is not simple though, but like in terms of like pure man hours, for me to get a song from like 0 to 100, the Fallujah one was a little bit harder.
Yeah.
But Abiotic stuff is nothing to sneeze at either, because especially the ones that we did with the 2 US tours, that material took practice for sure.
Yeah, you got to put the time in.
What's it like?
It makes me wish I'd like.
Did you go like? Because Felix Martin is a hell of a guitarist, man. So just like, how do you even match that when you play with him?
So I'd known Felix since he was 18. So I've or like 19 maybe. So I've known him for a hot minute. We went to school together. So it was kind of good for me to play with him as a first starter, because that's how I started touring with him. Because since he had such an unconventional approach to it, that whenever I played with like normal bands, you know what I mean? Like my brain was already so used to being stretched to the limits of like what I had to do, that like everything else kind of felt more linear. But yeah, like it was just one of the things where we kind of like grew up together musically a little bit, because like I was a year older than him. So my senior year, his junior year, I started playing with him. And so, we would practice together. And so I saw how his process worked. We would practice together and have like kind of like these things and rehearse. So like I was very like knowledgeable about how his like process and the way he viewed music and his influences were. So like sometimes I would match his like crazy like tapping stuff, and then sometimes he'd play different things. It's very like you have to listen to the drummer a lot with that. And so the album we did, Mechanical Nations, I'm still like really proud of that record, because like there's some really cool bass highlights on that record that are just like really funky and cool. And it was it was fun. I mean, we're still friends. I talked with him, like on text, whatever. He asked me if I was gonna go to NAMM. He got a guitar company, but yeah, it was definitely one of those like things where like I'd grown up with a lot of progressive influences. So like when I was playing with him, I was very intrigued by it because it's something that I'd never heard of before, and it's such a unique sounding thing with him. And I viewed it at the time like as a really cool challenge to be like, okay, like this is absolutely not something that you would normally train for. So I guess I'm going to be figuring this out as I go. And then throughout the years, like, we toured we toured for a while. Like I played with Felix on and off from 2009 to last show was 2018. So like we played on and off for 9 years, and so, yeah, like throughout that evolution, I kind of saw how to do it. And we both our first tours were together. So like that, like in a van, losing money, being exhausted thing. So yeah,
I still remember it was Sam driving you at TechFest, wasn't it? Sam Kubrick.
Yeah, Sam Kubrick. Yeah.
I remember Dave Ball came up to us and said, "There's these people parked over there, and I've got to tell them to move." And he was like, "All right, I'll go do it." He went over. He was like, "Shit, it's Felix Martin." Ran away. Like, no, leave him sleep. Leave him sleep.
That's so funny. It was so funny. I'm glad I'm glad I got to see David at the London show. Yeah, it was nice to see him.
Oh yeah, nice. No, that's good.
I forgot how tall. How tall he was. He's like 6'7".
He's big. He's big.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah, man.
So you, I noticed that you do online lessons, right, for teaching bass. How's your bass teaching going right now? Like, are you finding it worthwhile to be teaching?
Yeah, I mean, like, I view it as a part of my income, absolutely. If it were up to me in an ideal world, I would be able to do it full time, you know what I mean? It's just a matter of, like, like, with so many other things competing with it, it's, like, very hard to get it full time. But, like, no, I do have, like, I have 2 students tomorrow, and, like, I had some this week, and, like, like, so it's part of the income process, you know what I mean? As a musician, you have to be multifaceted, but I love it. Like, if it, like, in an ideal world, like, if, like, everything worked the way I would want to, I would teach, 5 lessons a day and then just play whenever gigs are because I genuinely enjoy it. I like, it's kind of fun. You get to like discuss things with people. You see the self-improvement with people. I like talking about it in a nerdy sense and like giving people insight and, it's also it's a good way to practice because like when you're teaching something, it really has to affirm that you know what you're talking about. So it helps keep me really good with my fundamentals. Because if I'm teaching people, like, okay, here are these scales, here's the theory knowledge, here's how you actually play the thing or whatever. When I'm showing them that, I'm inadvertently reinforcing and developing good practice habits in myself. So I really like it. It's just a matter of just, like, it's, but it's worthwhile, absolutely. If I could, I would teach full-time, like, and just through any other day job.
Man, you must be busy all the time, like, to shift between playing bass for a huge selection of people, actual playing live performances as well, touring, teaching.
Yeah,
it must be pretty non-stop.
Yeah, like I'm grateful that there's like at least like every month there's something different that I'm focusing my energy on. You know what I mean? And so it's cool. There's a lot of more downtime between bands than people like think. You know what I mean? Like so, like there are times where everything's like it's like restarting an album, it's like with Fallujah. Where like it's like okay, tour, come back home for a few weeks, and tour. Like it's like boom, boom. But a lot of artists usually it's like intermittent when it happens. But it's cool because that way I keep busy while like like things come in circles. You know what I mean? Like so like when I was playing with Neely last month, like it was like okay, so I'm going to Vegas for 4 days to do the G4 clinic with her and playing with her and doing these kind of things, and then some time off at home where I have to do other things, and then I go to 70K, and then this spring's like pretty like more mellowed out, but then things will ramp up in the summer, and you know what I mean, like so, but it's cool. It's just there's a lot more downtime with bands unless it's like Mastodon or a band that's like let's fucking go.
Yeah.
But it's cool, man. Like I definitely have 2 artists that we're releasing singles with that I'm on. hopefully within the next. I think one of them is releasing this next week, and then the other one by the end of the month. So I'm stoked to have that be like new music for people to hear me on.
Oh, nice.
Which band is that going to be for?
So with Abiotic, we are releasing a new single with Matt Heafy from Trivia, which we're really stoked because it's our first we started incorporating 8 strings into the writing style, and but it's really cool. Tony, our drummer, has taken the kind of like masthead of like really being a really big contributor. So it's like what we started on Ikigai. This is like a more advanced form even with that, and it's our first. It's a second song actually with clean vocals, but with like that type of vocals, and it works really well. And Matt wrote a really awesome chorus for the tunes, and something we know that's going to do really well. Like at least with our fan base, it's going to be received really well. And then the other one is I was lucky enough. Angel asked me to play on the second single off of his new album, so it's really cool. That one I'm really proud of to be on because it's mostly an acoustic tune. It's like very kind of like Al Di Meola meets like Return to Forever. So like there's a lot of diversity in that one as well. So it's like in this month, I'll have 2 songs. Like one is like super heavy and crazy, and the other one's like very relaxed where I play like Latin grooves and like it's like very pocket type stuff. So it'll be nice. Like like it's more new music and like it's I think people will like them because it's like stuff that I'm proud that I was able to play on. And that's going to be like this month, so at least some stuff to look forward to this month, musically released.
I'm going to ask, where are you from actually? Because you grew up with Felix. Where else are you from?
So I didn't grow up with Felix, but we're from the same place. So I'm from Venezuela. So I grew up in Venezuela. Yeah, so I moved to the United States when I was 3. Felix moved when he was 18, so like he grew up there. I visited a lot when I was a kid, but then I grew up in South Florida in the United States, so. And then, and that's where I basically, like, as a child and until my adolescence, I went off to college in Boston. I grew up in South Florida. So, like, very typical Latin kid, like, grew up in Florida.
Where do you find a lot of your musical influences came from? Like, was it not really particularly Latin influence if you were growing up in America?
So it's all over the place. So it's kind of cool. I didn't have those kind of like traditional parents that like were like, "Oh, my music is cool. Your music sucks." My parents were always like both my parents, my mom and my dad, both have really good taste in music. Like my mom is more of like a prog head, so she's like the prog head in my family. Like so she loves like stuff like Renaissance and Rush and Yes, and I was just listening to Opeth with her. Coming back from a Christmas thing. So she doesn't dig like the scream vocals as much, but she thinks like all that instrumental stuff is really sick. So she was very much like into like stuff like, like King Crimson and all that kind of avant-garde stuff growing up. And my dad is more like a fusion head, so he liked like more like Return to Forever and stuff like that. He listened to salsa around the house. But, in classic rock with each other. So but they never were like, "Oh, your music sucks." They were always like very like kind of like, "Oh, cool, yeah, you can play your album guitar," kind of thing. And so it's pretty all over the place growing up. I always did gravitate more towards like as a teenager, metal and rock and stuff like that. But I've always listened to like everything really. Like if anything, as I got older, I listened more like pop music now than I did when I was a kid. Because it was more like not true cult when I was a kid. But it was a combination between like my parents showing me that stuff, and then I had my older cousin who was like my older brother because I don't have siblings, who was showing me all like the metal bands at the time. You know what I mean? Like like the kids in his high school. Because I went to like a private Catholic school, so he went to public school, so he could like listen. He'd get like all the cool albums and stuff like that. Like and I had like that stereotypical like adolescent in the suburbs thing where you have an older sibling or family member who would show you metal records, or like an older friend that would show you like sick bands. So it was kind of all over the place. But I had a lot of friends in high school as well that like it just would always like my best friends. Like it's how I actually found out Fallujah. It's through my best friend who we still talk all the time from high school. But like just like it's all over the place, man. Like I'd listen to everything from like old fusion to like prog, but then I loved like poppy shit. I still dig lots of good hip hop and stuff like that. So for me, the way I view it is like also performing a lot of stuff, and that's what I wouldn't listen to, right? Like so, I don't necessarily listen to bebop. I don't necessarily listen to like a lot of that stuff, but like playing it is a lot of fun. You know what I mean? Like so, Like I've been like trying to practice like my country picking guitar. I don't listen to that stuff casually, but it's a lot of fun to play. So through like playing songs or genres, like I found that like my mentality is there's no such thing as bad genres really. I mean there's some, but it's more like bad musicians. But like you get really good musicians that can make a mediocre song really sick. So like I've definitely played songs that normally I would hate with like a really good group of musicians. I'm like, oh, that's freaking sick. So I know it's a long-winded answer, but yeah, it's like kind of all over the place just due to like how I grew up and where I grew up and stuff.
No, that's cool, man. That's cool.
It's interesting how music influences from all areas, isn't it? That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What was like? What's your biggest gig? Like, what was your best moment in a live performance out of any of the bands?
Live performance, like it's kind of toss up. So I've played like pretty big gigs, but the two that stick out in my mind where I was like, oh, this was like pretty magical when I was on stage. One was with Scale the Summit when we played with Leprous in Mexico City at this nice, beautiful, like very nice venue, and like they flew us down for the one show, and you know, it's just Mexican crowds because they don't get the bands that regularly are like really into it. You know what I mean? And because of the rarity of it, us and Leprous and Sky Harbor, we played like this really nice venue. But just like the audience energy was a lot of fun, and just kind of that trip being there for that one-off event was really kind of magical. And I'll always remember that show because I felt like we played really, really well. And then on top of that, also was just the fact that I felt that like the energy and the vibe of the people was really great. Recently, it's not even so much of a big show as it was just a moment where I was like, we were playing on the Fallujah Rivers of Nile tour last summer, and we were playing a sold-out show in Colorado at this beautiful theater called the Bluebird Theater. So it's like kind of an opera house, and it was packed, so it was sold out. But the thing was, a moment was like just the crowd energy, and it was a moment where like, you know, because COVID had like kind of almost destroyed live music. I know for you guys the same thing. There wasn't shows and whatnot. And it was the first show on that tour where I was just like, I like closed my eyes and I felt I was fully present. Like I wasn't thinking about the past. I wasn't thinking about the future. It was just like, I was finally like, I felt like back, you know what I mean? Like I was like very centered emotionally. So it's a really cool show that I always like will remember that like from you, that's like, oh man, that was like, you know, like emotionally very cathartic. And
like finally back.
There's a couple of cool ones. Yeah. And then there was like another show, not to bring up a third answer, but like it's actually with Felix back in 2014. This is right before I met Tom. We got asked to do a Metal Injection showcase hosted by Metal Injection. And me and Felix hadn't played in like a year and a half. And we came back, and that was like a really crazy weekend. Like it was us, Rivers of Nile, the Lattermath, Scale the Summit. Then the next day was After the Burial and Animals Leader. So the same venue in that 2 days was filled with like a lot of fucking sick bands. And we played our asses off. And it was just one of those shows where like, it was the first show, I guess, like as an adult that I felt like with like original music that I was like, oh man, I know what this feels like now to be in front of like a crowd and do this like for real with bands that are established, that are like actually like, you know, legit, you know, because we've done touring, I've done individual shows, but it was the first time I felt like kind of like, oh shit, this is what it's like, kind of like, and it was a lot of fun, and the crowd reception was awesome. We got invited the following year too as well to play with Veil of Maya, but it was just, I remember that show was really sick. So I guess those three are ones that stick out in my mind as being like,
that's got to be a real like a highlight like moment of everything, isn't it? When you feel like you've reached there with a bunch of bands that you respect and stuff as well. So yeah,
man. It was very cool. It's like one of those things where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm like actually an adult doing a thing. I'm not like being like a kid anymore, like as a hobby or something like that. I was like, okay, yeah, we're doing this for real. Like, yeah.
But do you feel like turned you from amateur musician into like just full-time professional? How did you get from one to the other? What was the point, the turning point for you?
I think that like if at any point in time you're using it to contribute to your income in any way, I think that it counts. So like even people that say like, oh, like I'm an amateur, but like if you're like playing every weekend and bringing some money home, or you're like trying to do it, then yeah, I believe you're doing it professionally. The moment I felt like I was like, oh, okay, I'm actually like starting to make this work is like I was just graduating college and I had this gig playing a festival, and with the money I made off the show, I bought myself a new mattress at home. And so it's like the first time I'm like, I paid through that, not through my day job, but I paid through like a new mattress with gig money. And I was like, okay, now I'm a big boy with big things.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that like like there are people that like there's like, oh well, if you have a day job, you're not. You're like, no bullshit. I know people in massive touring bands that still have to like you know punch a clock and whatnot. But I think that if like you contribute a portion of your income with it, and you've done it like for real, where you're like, hey, I'm doing a tour with the tour manager, and like we're pursuing this as part of like our life path in some capacity. You know what I mean? Like I take this seriously enough that this is going to be like a thing that involves my trajectory in my life. Now, whether I still have to have a day job or not is the thing. But if it's like the main guiding force in my life, I think that that's how you'd qualify it, regardless of how you have to make other income or whatnot. I think that that's really what it counts.
Mm. I was wondering actually, because I'm under the impression you don't have any music released under your own name, right? There's no Kilian Duarte solo project, is there?
No, just because like I'm like I'm very much a collaborative writer. I like writing in bands, kind of thing. Like I
Okay.
don't mind being like
So
a
that's,
band leader if like
is it
yeah. So
like,
like
so
there's
there's no
stuff that on the
aspiration for you long term to have your own solo project? You're just happy to do these collaboration
I might
projects?
I might do I might do a solo record one day, but it would be so ambitious because like I wouldn't want to like put like a it wouldn't be like a bass record. It would be like I would want to write something that's like there would be so much involved. It'd be kind of like Lattermath esque where like it would be very ambitious and I would need to call on so many musicians, and
Mm.
I know that the time scale would be fucking epic. So a lot of stuff that I do is like I'll release some videos with some original stuff that I'm doing. You know what I mean? Like stuff that's like original clip stuff like that because I like that like kind of is my voice. And also I like that like when
Mm.
I do like a lot of my Instagram stuff or whatnot, it's more chilled out than some of the bands that people know me for. And so I like to represent that side of myself that's like, hey, I'll do like a lo-fi thing or something like that that's like very chill. And then like obviously I'll release a single with one of the metal bands and whatnot. But I very much am one of those people that likes writing collaboratively. So like I'm not really the type of person that of course like I've picked up my guitar before and written an idea and stuff like that. But I'm not like my brain for some reason is like very rarely like starts a song and ends a song by myself. It's usually that like I like being in a room with someone else and bouncing ideas off of them. That's how I get like because I'm a very fast writer when I like get the inspiration from it. But that's usually like bouncing off a person. Like I live now with the drummer from MEyou, Tony, and Tony, it kind of is like a really cool um, thing when we work because like he'll just start bouncing ideas. All right, let's think about this, and then it's kind of like I like throwing stuff against the wall quickly and someone that can catch my ideas really
I
quickly.
think bassist and
So
drummer working together is a good shout.
yeah. Oh no, the dynamic works really well, but it's also just like I don't know. I've always just been one of those people. Like I like writing in bands. Like what I mean. Like I like when I'm in a practice space, and it's how I grew up. You know what I mean. So I was never very much like I guess maybe because I'm a bass player. So like I started playing guitar later. I started playing bass. Not most people play guitar first. So for me, the songwriting aspect of it was always kind of like even though I'd write some little things in my room, it was very much like I'm in a room with other human beings doing that, and like I want to make it a point to like record more ideas, but there's also the thing that like there's a lot of stuff involved like programming drums, which is like a nightmare. That like I don't know if I like really want to like learn. Like maybe I'll learn how to do that, but like from what I've seen is that it is very arduous, and I'd rather just have a really good drummer, just be like, hey, here's a part. What do you think is like this?
I'm with you. I'm
I
with
don't know,
you 100%. You're saying everything, and I'm just like, yes, this is exactly the reason.
Yeah, programming drums is just like kind of it's a whole thing. There's a lot of it's also like I have a lot. I'm surrounded by a lot of people who I are friends with. My best friends who are really good recording engineers and a really good live sound engineers. Like that's what they do. They do production stuff. And the more I know how difficult and how arduous and how to get to a certain level of quality, also as well, that like to get a production sounding like that I just respect what they do too much to pretend that I like I record my own bass at home, like, and I've recorded guitar stuff at home, like individual tracking I can do, but like the whole like, oh, I'm gonna make a demo or something like that by myself. I'm like, hell no, dude. Like, there's so much shit involved in that. I'm more like you do the button pressing with that. You're really good at that. Yeah. Like, you know.
I don't even like dialing in a tone. You do that. You're better.
I've gotten way more self-reliant. Like when I get a session now, I edit and track all my bass by myself, and you know, like I do all the stems and stuff like that, bouncing all that stuff, no problem. And I've done like guitar stuff as well, and I can layer stuff. That stuff is cool, but like pretending like I'm like a producer or an engineer, I think that's also the reason why so many people roast people who are like, oh, I have some plugins and like a mic and a Scarlett. Like I'm an engineer. I'm a engineer, and I'm like, nah. Like I know my limitations.
Yeah.
And, I keep learning, but I definitely wouldn't have the audacity to be like, oh no, I got this.
If you're
There's a lot of
around
musicians
it,
that love doing that. Like
you're around it, so
yeah. But it's also the people I've worked with, like with Tony. Like he's like insane. He knows how to orchestrate. Like he knows every synth. He knows like all the stuff. Like the people I'm surrounded with are people that are extremely competent. Not like even they're good. They're like, holy shit, amazing at it. So I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, this is a whole career path.
I think it's weird having to be multifaceted and then do like realize where you have to go. Right, I can't like breach on that when there's people that have focused that much more on it than I have as well. That's kind of an interesting area.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, there's a certain level. If there are people who are like arrogant about it and don't want to believe this is true, but like, there's a certain level where people have different strengths, right? So for me, instrumentally, like playing the instruments and even like some recording, I know I got that. Like, it's what I do. But there's just I've just been around too many engineers to know, like, there's so many bedroom engineers. And like, of course, they can make a demo, but it's an entirely different art to record, having that kind of mentality. It's very technologically based, so like it's beyond just like oh, I know how to use a DAW. It's like a whole world of like really understanding things, and also the troubleshooting as well. Because a lot of stuff is like, oh, like it's also the level that you want to do it as well. You know what I mean? Like I'm glad that the things I've released recently are like things that are extremely well mixed, that like I could show indie engineers and be like, that's awesome. The songwriting's really top notch. The performances are all, right on the money. It's like really good work. And so for me, I wouldn't feel like I wouldn't want to impose that I could do anything like that by myself. Because even the people I know that like do this, that know their shit when it comes to their self-recording, still will go to a producer and do the albums and engineering for final things a lot of times. For stuff like Abiotic, we're lucky, or Lattermath, because like, especially Abiotic, because Tony is an engineer. So we have someone in the band, kind of like how Periphery with Nolly, but I don't know how far, like if Nolly Get Good hadn't been in Periphery, like in those phases, like, there's an advantage they had that like, oh, by the way, our bass player just happens to be an extremely competent recording engineer.
Nolly used to be in a UK band, right? As well. Go on with your thing. Sorry, I just had a really random swap.
Oh no, it's fine. But so we're lucky that we have kind of our guy in that band like that. But I'd like to fancy myself that like what I do is I play bass Like that's what I can bring with 100% confidence. And my guitar playing is pretty solid as well, so I can do that. But at the same time, it's also like I like letting people do their thing. So like, I'll show a guitar player stuff. Like I like, hey, here's an idea. But at the end of the day, there's like little minutia of things that they do that like only can come from someone who's always like that. Like drummers. There's a lot of guitar players that love micromanaging drummers. Like they're like, oh no, can you do this little cymbal hit it here? And for me, I'm like, dude, I'm the one that listens the most, and I go like, I would rather that you, unless you're doing something that's blatantly wrong, do your thing, because no amount of programming drums, no amount of like, superior drummer will ever recreate what it's like to have a person that's behind the kit, that knows what the dynamics are, that has the experience of it. So for me, like, it's one of the things where I've definitely heard of people that like program drums that then like they give it to a drummer and they're just like, yeah, this isn't like physically able to be played by a human being, right? Like it's like there are cymbal hits that would require a third limb, and so like as cool as that is, I would rather just be like, I'd rather just hire a cool friend of mine as a drummer and be like, yo, just do your thing, man, and I'll give you guidelines for what I like, but apart from that, like I like letting people do their thing.
Yeah, definitely. I think everyone's focused so much on the instrument over time that it's like, why would you pick at stuff unless it is, like you say, unbelievably wrong?
Yeah, it's also one of the things where also like I found that like a lot of people like if you're concentrating too much on other people's performances a lot, like sometimes like it's a way that people will compensate for the fact that they're not 100% on their stuff. So like I found that like the more you're like, I mean like there's still like, yeah, you could be in a band with someone that just doesn't get it and they need notes and guidance or stuff, but I always found that like if you're luckily I'm at the level where the people that I'm in bands with, we don't really have our like flaws, you know what I mean? Like everyone is genuinely a very good musician, and I don't have to worry about them not being able to do a performance. Usually at this level, everyone knows what the fuck they're doing, and like that's kind of the fun of it, that we don't have to worry about like, oh, will this person be able to nail stuff? Like that's not even in question anymore on this level. It's very much like, cool. What kind of cool ideas are you going to?
Is it like you don't feel like you need to practice in a practice room too much? It's just kind of come together and then do your
100%. Like yeah, like with like Fallujah, when we did that tour, we had a rehearsal, but it's usually like even with that music, we had a day of rehearsal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because it's expected that at this point, everyone is. You wouldn't be asked if this would be a thing that you're struggling to get by. It's just that you're like, you know how to fly the plane at this point. It's just a matter of like, okay, well, acclimatize ourselves to like the different dynamics, like, get the sound levels in our in-ears, get ready to actually playing the songs in front of people. But for the most part, it's assumed that like, yeah, you starts going, you just go. So it's on this level, it's people that have the discipline and know-how and have done their homework before and stuff. So when we're playing stuff, it's usually album tight for most of the bands I've been like, and then just polishing some little things if people need like, oh yeah, like one or two things, but it's never like, oh, like we got to practice this part. Like it's like sometimes they'll go over like little details that want to, but like it's mostly like the cake is baked.
Yeah, that was a band I was going to talk about, was Slice the Cake, when you were talking about orchestration and stuff, though, because you had one guy that was producing all of that music. That's insane. It took tons of like so much time because of that. Like, but that's just crazy. So much orchestration.
It's still more common like within bands that like someone is the primary mover of a lot of stuff. You know what I mean? Like so, like with Scale of Summit, it is Chris Letcher, and it's always been. You know what I mean? Like it's his band, and he's the main songwriter for that stuff. And with Felix, he's like that angel. But even like with like collaborative band stuff, like like with Lattermath, it's pretty much Eli and Derek. You know what I mean? Like there's and then people come in and add their things and flavors, and right now with Abiotic, a lot of it's Matt and Tony are like the main ones. John contributes a lot too as well, but like it's a lot of it is those are the pillars right now. And Tony being someone that contributes like a lot, because he like has like all these ideas, and his orchestration stuff is really like next level, which is a nice touch for us to have, because coming from a band that was just straight like almost like Rings of Saturn-ish tech death kind of stuff, to now having like full like layers and stuff like that feel like it's matured out a lot.
Mhm. Mhm. Do you end up writing tabs or even scores for your bass lines for any of these bands? Like, do you put the effort into doing that, or do you just not really need to?
Only for Scale the Summit because we sell it as a product. So I'll get
Ah.
tabs done for Scale Summit for tab books. But that's just kind of a tradition with Scale Summit that like it was part of like one of the first bands to do that was to have tab books. So I have tab books for the last 2 records I did. But for the most part, no.
Mm.
Just because like there isn't a context to like because if I'm teaching someone something, then like I'll like make a video or something, or like then I'll maybe tab it out. But unfortunately, a lot of the stuff I write also is kind of nuts, and I use Guitar Pro. I think it's the cool stuff to show people, but I also despise it because it's also like not a fun program for me to use. I don't like it. It is a means to an end. I'm not like against it. It's just one of the things where like, but like I would much rather be like, yo, like if it's someone, especially if someone's subbing in for me that's competent, I'd be like, yo, hold on, let me make you a video. We'll talk about the parts, whatnot. Then for me to sit there for, especially some of the stuff I'm playing, be like, I'll make you a video and show you it because some of this stuff for me to tab out individually on Guitar Pro would be a fucking nightmare. I think the people that do it where it works out for sub situations like that is because they are tabbing as they're writing, which is its own like you know thing that's like very common with a lot of modern metal guitarists. That they're like, okay, I'm writing a part, so I'll Guitar Pro tab it as well. I appreciated someone who lays down session work that people usually provide tabs for like techier stuff because like it's something simpler. I can hear. I have good ears. I learn songs by ear. But for tech metal and stuff that's progressive, you need that. So I appreciate it. But like they're like the only apart from Scale Summit, I'll make you a video to show you my parts because like I'm like especially like my crazy stuff.
Mm.
I'm like nah, I'm not gonna do that.
Like, is there even a button for some of this shit?
That's fair.
That's also the problem is that like for slap like especially slap bass stuff it comes across horribly in Guitar Pro and a lot of those MIDI things because they have the ghost note stuff but it's very difficult to program slap bass on
Mm.
on Guitar Pro without it sounding off and because unless also the ghost note values how you place the ghost notes slurs stuff like that it's the one thing I've noticed in all of Guitar Pro that like I've seen it all over the place with MIDI files with it where like every type of guitar playing and whatnot translates pretty dead on. And then slap bass stuff is just like, oof, it's rough because it is, in my opinion, the most difficult thing to program in those because it's a combination of almost drum programming and that. So it's
a feeling though as well, isn't it?
And
It's
I'm
what
all
like
set.
that bass hits off and what that player gives off and all sorts of stuff, right?
Yeah, and especially if you're doing like the more complicated stuff, that can get real hairy real fast. So like the simpler stuff, like I said, I've tabbed it out for Scale Summit. I've done it, but like the more complicated stuff can get real dicey. So a lot of times I'll be like, "Yo, man, can I just make you a video showing you what I'm playing there, so you have like an approximation of what's going on?"
Mm. Usually, like on our weekly podcast, we tend to play a track from the artist which has joined us. I was wondering if you would give us permission to actually play one of the tracks that you played at baseball for the listeners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Which band would you be able to give us permission to play?
I'll give you a Scale Summit track because
Yeah, let's go to Sonic.
yeah.
Okay.
So especially at the subject records, so a song called "Don't Mind Me" that I like a lot. It's like it's one of the popular songs on it, but like the bass playing on that song, I'm really proud of, and I can send you guys that song.
All right, cool.
I know I like it. It's
It's all good. I've got it up here. All right, let's have a quick listen, shall we?
Yeah.
This is "Don't Mind Me."
I got a crazy story about this record afterwards.
dusk we fade away. I can't lie. It's been heaven let you go. I don't mind. Alright. Say what you like, but don't say I didn't try. We were both alright. We closed our eyes. It looked a lot like paradise. Living in the light. That's right. That's right. That's right. All we do is joy. On and on and on. We move on. We move on. Don't mind me if from time to time I miss the way we were. Crossing my big greener, but I wish it didn't hurt. Don't mind me if from time to time I text you late. It could be worse. I wish our house would clean up. I don't think that's how it works. Got me down, turned away. I don't know what. Shut me out, walk away. I think it's best we both leave. On and on, we move on. We move on. Got me down, turned away. I don't know what. Shut me out, walk away. I think it's just we both. It's best we both.
Hey,
Yeah.
man, it's been too long since I've listened to Scale the Summit. Ed, I'm pretty sure I haven't actually heard this album. I think the last album I heard was In a World of Fear from you guys.
So the thing that's crazy about this record, which we're really proud of, but it was also very challenging for us, is that so those songs are written as instrumental tracks. So like they were written, done. And all those vocalists came afterwards and laid down that stuff. So I had to play bass imagining whatever a vocalist might possibly be doing, but with absolutely no idea what they were going to do. So I had to toe this line between, okay, playing a little bit more like eccentric, doing some more fun stuff, while being very pocket, but also at the same time not wanting to write a bass line that would maybe potentially go over someone like that. And I like kind of am proud of myself with that because I thread a needle in which I think the bass is still interesting, it's still there, but that it didn't usurp anything that eventually would happen because technically the vocalist a lot of times was writing to demos that didn't have final bass on it, and I didn't know what they were going to do. So it was this very crazy process, and it's a double album, so it's like still the instrumental stuff that people like, and it's way more intricate than The World of Fear. But then there was that whole crazy thing when I was laying bass where I had to be like, okay, I could do a little bit more of the old school stuff where I've been a little bit more busy, which I did for some songs. Like that one has like some cool fun slap stuff and stuff like that, and like cool like fills. But then I had to remember and keep in mind that there's going to be an invisible vocalist that I have no idea what they're going to lay down there on this for the vocal version. So it was a very unique recording challenge, and I think I'm really happy with what I did with it. And but it was definitely one of those where you're like, at the time you're like, oh shit, I got it.
That's so good. That's so good though. I love that. I think that's the best I've heard, Eric.
You managed to find a different vocalist for every single song. There's a unique vocalist in every track on the album. It's sort of funny.
Yeah, because we thought like, it's always been instrumental. It still is an instrumental band. So like that record exists in its totality, just instrumental. The bass is even a little bit higher on the instrumental one. And I have a bass solo on Space Cadet, one of those songs as well. Like, and so, but we had this kind of thing where I'm like kind of trying to thread these things. But yeah, we found all of the performances are fantastic in my opinion, and they each bring their own thing. But it's mad respect to all the vocalists because like we all got everyone's takes back, and we're like, oh shit, this is really cool how they interpreted this music. And so that was really cool, and I'm glad that record exists. I mean, like even though we didn't get the tour behind it because of COVID, I'm glad it exists as a piece of work, and I'm glad.
I think Mike's definitely a good one from Intervals days and stuff when he took over there.
Oh yeah. Temesky did a great job.
Yeah.
It definitely stands out as a different to the other projects you work with because I've always known Scale Summit as more of a proggy math band and more of a much lighter style, much more positive vibes, kind of upbeat. Whereas you're playing with you're listening to A-Bar, they've got Fallujah, Lattermath. It's way more in the heavier death metal kind of zone.
Apart from Lattermath's newer one,
where you kind of have to get in that space to listen. Yeah, apart from that, but Lattermath's newer one is still heavier than Scale of the Summit. It's still an intense.
Oh yeah, no. We have drop A flat riffs in that one. I like the contrast. I mean, it's something that I like is that so like, and the one thing that like I was talking to someone about the other day is that like regardless of where my career goes from now, it's like I'm really happy that it's like it all ended today. That I have some records that I put out that like genuinely like reflect stuff that like I wanted to do, like the Lattermath record, this record. The stuff like that we've been doing are stuff that I would have wanted to put out as a kid in my own, like I'm like, oh, I want to be in a band. What would it sound like? And these types of records are stuff that like I would have been proud as a 15-year-old to be like, oh man, I'm going to play in that. Like that's sick. So, I don't know where the future holds. I don't know what the hell's going to happen tomorrow. But like at least I'm happy with these records. They show a lot of diversity in my playing, and that like I have a lot in different styles for people to hear me on, and like. And also that the songwriting was good, you know what I mean? Like, it's not just like whittlies. It's like a lot of stuff that people are like, I actually like that record. It's not like, oh, that's really cool what you played on there. It's like, oh man, I like that record. Like I listen to it because it just makes me feel nice. And so that's what I hope is the main takeaway with everything, if all is said and done.
Yeah, definitely a few.
Especially like post-pandemic now, we're all like seeing a huge change in the industry. What would your advice be to an up-and-comer, someone just coming out of school who wants to be, playing live music, wants to be participating, collaborating with different bands? What's your advice for them?
Yeah. apart from like the basics of just like work hard and stay focused, it's that every generation, every iteration, you know, the music industry changes towards when you're starting, right? It's the reason why like people that started in the 80s cannot really relate to people that are starting that started in the 2000s or something like that, as the industry changes so much. So I would tell young persons that you are probably the better arbiter of knowing, or the better judge, sorry, of knowing what is gonna make you stand out. But at the end of the day, and this is just for me, this is just like my opinion, is that like try and do things that you would be proud of putting out. Because at the end of the day, it's still so luck based. Hard work and everything are obviously the things that matter, but music isn't a meritocracy. You know what I mean? It's the entertainment industry, and it's about it's not like, oh, I'm the best architect at my school, so I'm going to get like the biggest contract. It's very much like, take pride in what you do, be proud that you're really good at what you do. But I guess that would be a big thing. Is like is that you're the one that knows, because you're the ones growing up in that generation, what is the avenues that people find music that's a little bit more relevant that you would be more privy to. And then the second thing is that just, put stuff out that you're proud of. You know what I mean? Like I genuinely believe, like, if something that's trendy is something that you feel a lot, you know what I mean? Like that's part of your voice, and by all means do it. But like I've always found that the people who try to be trendy fail at getting any long-term success because it comes across more fair weather. But the bands that, like, people think of genres, the bands that still tour in genres that maybe aren't like as relevant today, but are the bands that like did it authentically because that was what they were saying at the time and it resonated with people. And thus, even if maybe that's not like the thing that's hot right now, they still have careers because, that for them was the authentic thing. Like, and it becomes timeless because they were saying something that was authentic. And I feel like the people that try and do stuff that's trendy, all of a sudden people are like, oh yeah, what happened to that band? Or like people don't care as much because it was purposely made on purpose to be part of a trend. So that, and just like, I guess make friends authentically. Especially if you're trying to do session work, like, apart from some very few exceptions, if you find any like really successful like session musician, I think the one thing that you find out, like, not like people who are like, oh, they're famous because they were like a one-off person, people that want to work with lots of people, it's someone that people want to be around. Like, I wanted to go see, when I was at G4 with Neely, Steve Lukather had a clinic, and I'm like, okay, I got to check this out. And the one takeaway I got from him, apart from like the fact that, he's an amazing player, is that he's really fucking funny, and everyone like likes hanging out with him because he's like a really funny dude that lightens the mood. Like, he's legitimately like hilarious guy. Like, I had no idea. I just knew him for his resume, but like in person, he's making the audience crack up every 2 seconds and his anecdotes and whatnot. And takeaway from that is just more like that. Like, I think he got hired for his skill, absolutely, and his professionalism, but it's also because people liked being around Steve. And if you're going to spend a lot of time around someone in a band or whatnot, be someone that helps out. You know what I mean? Like, you never want to be that person on tour that's like brings stuff back, especially on tour. Pull extra weight. Stand up for yourself if people are taking advantage of you. But like, be a team player. Like, try and like if you someone like help with load-in or something like that, help with that. So, I guess those three main components. But that, yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
Good luck.
Yeah.
I guess
That's good advice.
yeah.
That's some good advice.
Yeah.
I got one more thing I want to ask you, man, and that is,
Yeah, sure.
who do you consider in the industry right now to be so like new, unique? Who right now do you really enjoy listening to and kind of inspires like a new movement in the industry?
That's a really good question.
We're seeing, like, these are a couple of random ones which come to the top of my head, but right now,
Yeah.
for death metal, Lorna Shore have just blown up kind of massive for the genre.
Yeah.
And, they're bringing that whole new twist to death metal. And then you got, like, bit of a different spectrum. You got like Polyphia's new style, mixing hip hop and kind of math rock,
Yeah,
and they've blown up quite big as well now. So there's a kind of new styles being pushed out. But who for you really stands out right now?
those are all really good choices with that. I'm going to be honest with you. I come from even though I play death metal and I play with them all the time. Um, I actually don't listen to that much death metal. I just know how to play it really well. But but Lord is Sick. I saw them live, and they're the real deal with their stuff. So it was really cool. Um, well, you UK guys, like those Sleep Token dudes are pretty sick. Like I like kind of like that stuff. It
Yeah, Sleep Token
speaks
are
more a
cool.
bit to
Did
a
you
little bit more
did
to my
you
sensibilities.
sorry, I was
Spirit
gonna say,
Box
did you
is
catch on to Tigran, Hamasyan and stuff? That's what I was
Tigran's
more
amazing. Yeah, like that's
more on
really
the
cool.
prog
Like
Big Rat
madness,
Heavy
like
Bass.
yeah. But yeah, like stuff like that, like Spirit Box obviously is like doing a great job for themselves, you know what I mean, with that, like in what they're
Mm.
doing. And I think it's a good direction for metal. I like that right now, and don't get me wrong, I still love playing instrumental music, it's awesome, but I like that like good vocals are a thing that like is coming back, you know what I mean? Like really good, like not just growls, but like good cleans and stuff like that are something that's kind of having a moment again. So but yeah, like basically all the things you just mentioned, you know what I mean? Like, um, I think it's good that this stuff is happening. But yeah, I guess it would be like, yeah, for the most part.
Mm. Yeah, we're definitely seeing a lot of interesting music come out right now. Last year was a pretty awesome year for new music. When we did our like album of the year picks, we had a few different guests at the end of the year talking along with us about who we're going to put down. I'm pretty sure one of the choices, Fallujah's album, did get put in there, so
Oh, nice,
you were one of them.
awesome. Yeah.
But the main vote went to David Max and Mitch's album last year.
Oh
Um,
yeah, David's a great songwriter. I think that's one of the things I was like those instrumental guys. He's one of my favorites because like he's really good. Like I mean, he's a gnarly guitar
oh,
player, but he's
incredible.
a really good songwriter. You know what I mean? So like
he's
his
just a
playing is
great composer. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
like
just it's him. It's his unique sound. He's found his own sound, and the way it's produced as well is gorgeous every time. So
yeah.
yeah,
What
that
was that
doesn't get
album?
in the most votes for us.
Yeah, he's really, really good. He had that record, Who Bit the Moon. I've listened to that a
Hmm.
bunch, and that's a very good record. I think
Oh, that's
yeah,
beautiful. I love
yeah,
Who
that
Bit the
record's really,
Moon.
really good.
It's kind of like more calming than any of the Bilo albums, where they all have that intense midsection halfway through the album, and Who Bit the Moon is just way more calm throughout the whole thing. So I do enjoy listening to that.
Yeah, it's very cinematic almost a little bit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah,
a
it
little bit
is.
like kind of like it's supposed to be like create an atmosphere of stuff. You know what I mean? It's like it's painting a
Yeah.
background or a mood. You know what I mean? Like of course there's direct motifs in the compositions, but I always felt like it's very much like you're seeing like a tapestry kind of with that record. It's a very nice one. I like it a lot.
Do you ever like just sit around listening to the music you played on, or are you like over the music you played? Do you still like to listen to
No,
it?
no, I absolutely listen to my own albums, and like I don't think
Oh,
and
cool.
it's not. And here's what I think is that if you write stuff that you're proud of, you should be a fan of your own bands. And it's not like people think it's like, oh, it's an arrogance thing or whatnot. It's like, no, because you're not saying that your bands are better than other people or whatever like that. But like, no, like I wear my band's merch and I listen to my band songs and like, cause like you should be writing stuff that you're a fan of. And I think like what I was saying earlier about being authentic is that like, if you don't like your band and the stuff you're writing, that you like it enough that you want to listen to, um, and don't get me wrong, I get where people would be like, oh, maybe like if you're the vocalist, like you feel a little bit too naked, exposed, hearing yourself sing. But like if you write stuff that you're proud of, you should be writing it also for yourself in a bit where it's like, oh, I like this because if also like if it connects with you personally like that, then like I think it will connect with that. But I definitely do that. Like that's why we're like I wear my own band's merch too. It's like I think it's weird to wear it on stage. Like I agree with that taboo. But like no, like it's your company. That's like the things that you're proud of in the work, and like also like your merch is part of also your art and stuff like that. It's an extension of the art itself. So I'm pro listening to your own records for fun and stuff like that. And it's not out of a sense of narcissism. It's just that like if you really like the stuff you put out, it's just the same as any other thing.
Mm. Yeah, that's true, man. That's cool. Oh, well, Killian, it's been really cool having you on the show. Um,
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me.
I'm gonna. That's cool, man. I look forward to listening to the new Abiotic when it comes out, and keep up to date
Yeah,
with, I guess, any new scale of the summit which might be happening within the next year or so, if that's actually in the works.
yeah,
It's been a while since there was the last Scale of the Summit album, so it'd be cool.
yeah. But no, definitely like for this year at least, I definitely like we have like I think Abiotic's gonna be releasing some more material, and then like hopefully some touring in the fall, and just like um, I can't talk about it in detail, but I did a record with it's gonna be the biggest record I've ever been on, at least artist wise. I can't give details because I signed an NDA, but it's with a big hip hop
Awesome.
artist in Atlanta. And like he's like a very 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 well established artist who's like played with some big people, and I got flown down in
Fucking sweet,
2021 to
man.
do a record with him, and it's really cool. It's a mix between like it's like a lot of shoegazy stuff and like a lot of big guitars, but at the same time, it's got hip hop and R&B vocals on it. But it's something that it's not like new metal at all. So it's kind of this really cool hybrid of the hip hop world and metal and like kind of heavier styles. But it's its own unique thing, and I'm really stoked because I think that is absolutely dropping this summer or at least this year. I mean, as far as I got updated, because I got the final mixes for some of these songs this week, and I'm really proud of that. So that's going to be a unique, different thing that people haven't heard me on, and it's with the biggest artist I've ever worked with. And so hopefully that'll be something that I don't know if like I'm going to tour with them or not, but it'll be something that I'm really going to be proud of that like will be released in the world.
That's
But, like it'll
awesome.
be
That's
something very
awesome.
different.
Yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, well, we'll keep updated on that, and then, once you actually make the release, it'd be great for us to check it out, share with the followers.
For sure, dude.
As for now, thanks for anyone
All
listening
right.
in, and to you guys, you have a good night.
Thanks, Kilian.
Yeah,
Peace
you
out,
too.
man.
Thanks for joining the show. Have a good one, buddy.